So I hear a lot of people these days throwing shade on our American ancestors. I mean, they're pulling their names off of schools and libraries, they're tearing down their statues, they're trying to cancel them. Well, I think they accomplished a lot. I'm not so sure they really deserve to be canceled. So I thought, why don't we do a little comparison? Let's compare some of their deeds to some of your deeds, or some of their accomplishments, I guess, to some of your accomplishments. Well, to start with, we have to go to the beginning. And no, that's not the beginning. Sorry. There it is. 1776. See, in 1776, there's a bunch of guys. They're a bunch of, beer drinking rebel rousers, really. And they decided to stick it to the man. Well, that's the man right there. His name is King George. King George, well, he was in charge of the British Empire. It was actually the largest empire in the history of everything. This guy had his boot on the necks of half of the world. Well, these guys over here, you see, they didn't take too kindly to that. And they decided they weren't going to take any more of his crap. So they went to war against him. And you know what? They actually won. Then these guys over here, so they had their independence now. And what are we going to do with it? Well, they created the first viable democracy. They gave us freedom. That was kind of a big deal. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, they didn't give freedom to everybody, Kirk. Well, a couple generations later, for an encore, a bunch of them got together. And they said, hey, you know what? This whole free country thing doesn't seem right if we got some people who have slaves. Well, they decided to create their own political party. You might have heard of these guys. They're called the Republican Party. And they elected their first president. This guy right here, Abraham Lincoln. You might have heard of him too. In fact, I'm pretty sure he even tore down some of his statues. Well, I don't know why, because this guy was kind of into cancel culture himself. You see, he canceled slavery. That's right. This guy ended slavery. Some people consider that a big deal. Well, after that, they gave black people the right to vote. But they weren't quite done there. Then they decided to give women the right to vote. Well, things weren't all that great though. Because see, over there in Europe, there was this fella, Karl Marx. He created this new type of government. It was called socialism. Well, socialism, they had two different branches. They had a branch called communism and another branch called, that's right, fascism. In case you didn't get the memo, fascism is actually a form of socialism. They didn't call themselves National Socialists for nothing. Okay, these guys, they were some bad dudes. Well, see, our American ancestors, they weren't having none of that. They weren't going to let these guys end democracy and take away their freedom. So they defeated these fascists and actual Nazis. And in the process, well, they probably saved an entire group of people from certain extinction. Well, when they got back, they decided they needed to do a little more. So, well, they gave us civil rights. Yep, finally, after 100 years of battling with the Democrats and always losing, the Republicans finally convinced enough Democrats to actually go along with it to pass the Civil Rights Act in 1964. This act required the government to treat all people equal under the law, regardless of race or creed. Now, some people, though, say the Democrats, they might have had an ulterior motive when they did this. I'm inclined to agree that, actually. But the point is, you see, in 1,000 years from now, everybody's still going to remember the names of Washington and Lincoln and Jefferson and MLK. But you know who they're not going to remember? Well, they're not going to remember you. No, they're not going to remember you at all, because you haven't done anything worth remembering, except complain that these guys, they didn't do enough.